Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Hoof podcast, live on Thursday night, ahead of the Thursday matchup tonight. Man, week 15, getting into the meaningful football games to get into the playoffs. This time of year is my favorite time of year. It's in the hunt season, playoff seeding, and then my favorite type of games, wild card and divisional round games, right? So really fun with the new playoff structure, right? It feels like a lot can happen, a lot can change. And really, it's not really the seeding or the bye week. It's more what team will play what team in the playoffs, right? So I feel like it changes every week, from this time forward. The teams in the AFC in particular have kind of been the same, right? If you look at like ESPN playoff machine, it's been kind of the same matchups throughout. But I feel like there's a lot on the line this week, and that could change.
Yeah, everything is still kind of up for grabs, even though it's week 15 of now 18 weeks, right, in the regular season. And it's exciting because if your team is still in it, even if your team is on the brink, I mean, look what the Rams did to the Bills, right? They are still in the playoff hunt because they kept themselves alive and could be fighting for, just the 7th seed in the NFC or 7th seed in the AFC. But even who they play is still up for grabs, right? The 2 seeds, the top seeds, everything is still open. Nothing is truly locked in yet. Even the Lions division, they have that's the Bills, who the Bills play this week. They have Minnesota right behind them coming for it. So the fact that the Bills have already locked up the division, the Chiefs have clinched their division, those are basically the only givens, right? We don't know anything else about most of these playoff matchups yet. And like you said, even who's in or who they're playing is all still up for grabs. And this week, there's some good matchups to kind of start working that out and giving us a clearer picture of how it is going to shake out in the long run.
Yeah, so there's just a few scenarios that could happen this weekend. Obviously, Bills, Chiefs are clinched in the AFC. But we look at the Texans-Dolphins game, 1 o'clock Sunday. If Houston wins, Indianapolis loses, Houston would clinch the AFC South. The other matchup in the AFC is the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, two really good teams, good matchup there. 425. Pittsburgh could clinch a playoff berth with a Pittsburgh win or Miami loss.
Interesting.
And Colts loss. So those two. So yeah, that's the AFC. NFC, Detroit is clinched. Philadelphia is clinched. There's 3 games on the NFC that could clinch scenarios. Packers at Seahawks Sunday night, 8:20. Green Bay can clinch a playoff spot with a Green Bay win, Atlanta loss, or San Francisco LA tie, right? Which very unlikely. And then Vikings versus Bears Monday night. Minnesota could clinch with a win or a Rams loss or a Seattle loss.
Yeah, so a lot open, a lot up for grabs still.
A lot there. There's one more, Eagles-Steelers, same game. Philadelphia could clinch the NFC East with Philadelphia win plus a Washington loss.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the scenarios.
Still, yeah, an exciting week. Lots of matchups that still matter, even though it seems like this year there's a lot of teams also in the opposite direction fighting for that top draft spot this year. There's still a lot of exciting football when it comes to playoffs and the teams that are still going to be in it. And I would say the teams that could make a run, right? I mean, again, the Bills just lost to a very good Rams team that if they make it in the NFC playoffs, they could make a run, right? And teams in the AFC, same type of thing. If the Steelers end up as the 7th seed, which is a totally possible scenario, they could still make a run. And same with Baltimore. If they end up there, it's all open. That's what's fun about the NFL playoffs. It's get to the playoffs and then it's a whole new world of expectations and matchups and seeding. And even if you're on the road, you can make a run. So it'll be fun to see these last few weeks who makes it. Hopefully it's an easy road for Buffalo toward the playoffs. I mean, we know this is a tough matchup this week against the Lions, but then we've got, New England, Jets, New England. Those should be fairly cakewalk, give you the opportunity to rest guys who need to rest or do what you need to do to start preparing for the playoffs. You can't sit out those games because again, like we said, everything is still up for grabs. So 1 seed for Buffalo is still very much in play.
Right.
You have to win games to do that. So they're still going to play it. But yeah, it's good to be in the position we are right now. Even after a loss, right? We just had a huge tough loss, and that's still a good position.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting now, you're 2 games behind Kansas City. And again, I've been saying all along, as long as you maintain the 1 or 2 seed, let somebody else try to knock Kansas City out of the playoffs, and you might not have to play them, right? If you do have to play them, it'll be the championship game. And the Bills are capable of beating Kansas City, but it'd just be better if they didn't have to play them, right? So that's where I'm at. Maintain the 2 seed. That's where I'm at. But really, now they're tied with Pittsburgh, right? So these games are starting to matter if that's still the strategy. And the good news is I think the Bills' schedule after Detroit lightens up a little, whereas Pittsburgh gets really tough. I mean, they got Philadelphia this weekend. I think they still have Baltimore on the schedule.
Yeah, and that division is always tough on each other, like we always say. Yeah, that's true. And I hate to say it, but last week on the podcast, I basically spoke into existence that the way the Chiefs won. I said that they would find a way, because we both picked the Chargers, knowing that I even said, the Chiefs are going to find a way on some kind of either missed field goal or their own field goal at the last second. Sure enough, that again is what happens to give them a ridiculous win yet again, by less than a touchdown. And yeah, they just keep finding a way to win. So good on them, but their luck has to run out eventually, and we hope it's in the playoffs. That's for sure.
Yeah, you think it would. I mean, they're not as good as last year. I think that's obvious. You go back and look at some of these games, and if things just go differently, one scenario changes. You're looking at like a 500 team.
It shifts the whole, platform of it, the Bills getting the 1 seed, right? I mean, we had the 1 seed locked up, basically, if they lose a game. And yet they could have kept pace with us by losing last week and still losing another. They find a way to win. So that's why they're in that 1 seed position. And you're right. I think the Bills need to focus on maintaining, if nothing else, to keep that 2 seed and home field advantage while we can get it.
Right. I agree. I think home field advantage this time of year. I mean, the Bills have lost playoff games at home, big ones, right? Kansas City, Bengals come to mind. They seem to play well on the road too. But I mean, is there an advantage? Certainly. I think you're more comfortable at home. You don't have to travel, right? So there's added time, right, to focus on studying or whatever it is. Obviously, having a crowd on your side where you don't have to adjust your cadence and things like that, huge advantage of the playoffs. So I think, you're in the 2 seed, you're in that position, maintain, right? That's. I think some people would argue, what's the difference between the 4 seed and the 2 seed? I think it's a different ball game if you have to travel to Baltimore or to Pittsburgh versus having them travel here, right?
Yes, and I think our team can beat their teams even on the road, but it's just the, again, like you said, you have home. It's called home field advantage for a reason. The crowd's on your side, especially in the playoffs. You know what the weather's going to be like, how the wind blows in the stadium, all the little things that give you that edge that is always good, but in the playoffs even more so. And yeah, that's where we want to be. We want to be playing at home in Buffalo in January in that weather, just like we did a few weeks ago when we showed what we could do there in the snow. So not afraid of the weather in Buffalo, but a lot of those teams would be.
Right, agreed. It's more of a disadvantage for the the people traveling, right?
Yeah.
The teams traveling. So anyway, we didn't really have a chance to talk this week. I mean, we got to unpack this Rams game just for a couple of minutes, right?
Yeah, we do.
What an amazing game, I thought it was one of Josh Allen's best performances. Really, the Bills had no business being in that game, but Josh alone held them in, right? I think that's
100%.
That's the storyline, right?
Yeah.
James Cook really didn't have a lot of touches. I mean, you saw the other backs step up. Ty Johnson had a big play. But again, you got Kincaid out, Coleman's out, James Cook not contributing. I mean, this is all Josh.
Yeah, solely.
It's one of his greatest performances of all time.
First quarterback. Yeah, I mean,
it'll be overlooked because they lost.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It really stinks. Watching every snap that Josh Allen has ever taken, I would say this was one of his best games ever, if not the. And the other one that was probably his best game ever was the 13 seconds game when he drove down the field and took the lead away from Pat Mahomes and yet lost the game. It wasn't his fault. The ball wasn't in his hands, but people don't remember that game because he lost. And I'm worried that the same thing's going to happen here. You're talking about the greatest performance he could have, and, it gets overshadowed by the fact that the Bills lost the game. And I have consistently said that Josh Allen is the true MVP because if he had to play at full strength for a full game, he would do more things than any other person in the NFL could do. And this game absolutely proved that, right? He took everything in his own hands. Because the other team was leading and beating us, we had to score, and he made that possible. Whereas how many games, I think I've said before, it's been at least a full game of Josh Allen sitting on the bench this year, and a full another game of the Bills have a big enough lead where he's just handing it off to the running back, and, it completely takes him out of the game. So to use the stats against him in that way, I'm like, no, just because Baltimore through 10 games had to throw the ball more or use the ball more, and Lamar had him in the stats, doesn't mean he was the true MVP. Same could have been said last year when the Bills did that. So I'm glad that people are realizing he is the MVP. I think he's definitely the absolute leader right now. Unless something absolutely crazy happens, he should win the MVP this year. But that's not the ultimate goal. It's playoffs. It's
Right.
winning games. And we both know what Josh Allen, and those who are watching, we know what Josh Allen is in the playoffs. He's pretty remarkable there as well. And like I said, the 13 seconds game, that gets overshadowed by the fact that, we lost.
Everyone always brings up the 13 seconds game, but really Josh's best postseason performance was against
New
the
England.
Patriots.
Yes.
Right? And again, that gets overlooked because New England's not what they used to be, but it's the most incredible football game I've ever watched. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Bills fan.
The New England
7
game.
drives.
Yeah.
7 drives,
just
7
touchdown, everything.
We
watched that game together at your place, remember? And I even said that game, Josh Allen's going to score a touchdown on every drive. Before the game, I said that, and he really did. So that was pretty wild. Yes, good
easiest game I ever watched.
Yeah. But
with the Rams game, just real quick. So really, I thought the Rams played perfect football in the first half. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Look, Stafford's he knows how to beat the zone. That's obvious. But then you also these corners are in position. Benford comes to mind. Taron Johnson comes to mind in some of these plays. They're in position to make a play, but Stafford's throwing the ball perfect between the defenders, and then the amazing catches by Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. I mean, they played perfect offense, right? So, and look, their season's on the line, so I give all the credit to the Rams on that. They had a great game plan. They took advantage of the Bills using Matt Stafford's experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was obvious. And then they kind of exposed the Bill with the run game a little bit. They pushed the Bills around, right? The offensive line played great for the Rams.
Yes.
Now, I thought the Bills had a real chance because they had the ball before half, and then they were getting the ball back at halftime, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go back and watch the New England Patriots when they were really good, always take advantage of that situation, right? Whether it's field goal touchdown or 2 touchdowns, that should be your goal every single time you're in that scenario. And the Bills came out with 0 in those 2 drives.
That stinks.
Right? And I thought the game was over at that point. And that's really, you go back and look, that was a huge part of the game. Right?
True. Yeah, definitely. You can't have 2 possessions back to back in the half and not come away with points and expect to win a game against a team that is blowing your defense out of the water. You have to respond offensively.
Right.
And there were multiple reasons for that. I mean, bad play calling, positioning. You already mentioned we do have a bunch of guys who were out still for that game. It was such a painful loss because thinking about the game, even the scenario you just said at the half, right after when we had possession, you punt, unbelievable. But so many opportunities in this game to actually have won it, right? So many chances that they gave us to come back and take a lead and then do something about it. 17 points down, and Josh carries us on his back all the way. The refs had a few bad calls, but you can't leave it in their hands. I don't like the false start where the guy's 5 yards back basically when the frickin' play gets snapped. Or the pass interference where they threw the flag and then picked it up. I mean, that took so much time off the clock. That's why I was angry about that one. Again, refs are going to ref. The NFL ref and officiating at this point is unreliable, to say the least. But it sucks that had an impact on the game. Ultimately, for me, this game came down to coaching. And although our offense performed well, the defense was very ill prepared. The special teams was disgusting. I mean, you can't give up.
I forgot about the
blocked punt.
Right.
That's the difference in the game, literally.
Yeah.
So blocked punt return for a touchdown, and 9 guys on the field to end the game. 9, not 10. 9.
Right. And we've seen this. This is not the first time that something like this has happened in a big moment.
Exactly. So this is
happens time and time again.
You highlighted exactly my concern from this game. Am I concerned that the Bills lost to the Rams? No. In the long run, completely irrelevant. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to look back and say, oh my God, they lost that game and it changed things. No, completely irrelevant. Doesn't even matter if we lose this week in the same fashion. Oh, they lost 2 games. Does not matter. Completely irrelevant. What does matter is how you lose and what happens in the game. And that is what I was cursing about after the game, right? That was the worst coaching performance since 13 seconds. So all of those concerns that we've had along the way were highlighted once again in ultimate fashion. Now, does that mean it's something that's going to haunt us going into the playoffs? No, but it still raises the concern again, right? You can't put things to bed. Oh, we're going to learn and grow. Well, guess what Sean McDermott continues to fail to do? Learn and grow, because we make the same damn mistakes over and over again. You can't learn and grow from putting too many players or not enough players on special teams. Make that mistake once and then get it right every freaking time, or fire somebody's ass, because that is not acceptable in the NFL, right? Accepting the penalty, you can make an argument that was, I'm talking about the false start penalty that set them back on 3rd down after
knock them out of field goal range.
Right. So that one you could debate. That one was debatable.
Sure,
I did say in the moment I would have declined it and made him go for 4th and 6.
Hindsight, I was even telling the people I was watching the game with this. I think you put them in 4th down, force them to kick the 3, give Josh Allen a chance. The way the game's going, that felt like the right move.
Yes.
Right.
I was more worried about
against McDermott doing what he did.
No, I was more worried about a penalty, right? Why give them another down when you got your backup cornerback out there and he just got called for a long penalty on a grab or whatever it was? I don't remember. It was holding or illegal touching or something that gave them an automatic 1st down. That's the number one concern I had, is don't give them another down to then get another mistake by the Bills defense when you have a ton of backups out there. And yeah, I mean, it was just continually throughout the game. It felt like, and obviously the biggest blunder was you're on the 1 yard line and you're passing the ball or you're running the ball instead of passing 3 times. You need every second there is to get back in the game. And yes, there's debate of, was that really a big deal? Because Josh would have had 18 seconds with the ball back max or whatever. We saw that happen to us, and it was only 3 points down, and we were just dominating them every time Josh Allen had the ball. So, yeah, I do think that matters, and I do think the Bills would have come back with that time. And I don't think running the ball from the 2 yard line, it's not like they were at the half yard line. It was like the 2 yard line. And then they had to use the timeout, and boom, that runs so much time off, and it forces them to do the onside kick. And that was that. For the Bills, basically.
And the worst thing is having Tom Brady critique that throughout.
Oh my God.
Right? That's the worst part. But again, he has a super high success rate in that quarterback sneak on the goal line. It's probably why they call the play.
From the 2, when they're literally lined up for it, and then in that situation where time is ultimately what matters the most.
Yeah.
Not getting the touchdown. Getting the touchdown did not matter. Time is what mattered the most.
Right. Yeah. No, certainly I agree. But I mean, I'm just trying to understand why that play's called. I don't know if it's the OC or is it Josh calling it at the line.
Exactly. We didn't get clear explanation on that.
But again, it's a high success rate, so they probably had a pass play called. If they're thinking like we are, like most people would, then Josh may have changed at the line to try to sneak it in because it's a high percentage play, right? But again, the panic, right? So he didn't get it. Clock's ticking. McDermott panics, calls a timeout.
Yeah.
Right.
Bad move.
And McDermott's an older guy, and he's been busy in his life, state champion wrestler, coaching, right? He don't play a lot of Madden. You know what I mean? But I mean, anybody who's ever played Madden, I know Madden's fake. It doesn't really give you good insight to how the game's actually played or called or things like that. But you do learn game management playing Madden. You do. You learn the little tricks using timeouts. You make decisions on field goals, things like that. McDermott needs to play Madden. I think he needs about 500 games to get good at managing the clock. Because I mean, all of the fans are watching that, going, "Yeah, just keep your timeouts." Even Tom Brady's saying it, right?
Yeah, and
so
sure
I mean,
enough,
I think everyone's on the same page. Just keep your timeouts. You didn't get the touchdown. Let the clock run. Just get
do
the
it
next
again.
play off.
Yeah,
Get
exactly.
in. But like you said, with the 18 seconds to go or whatever it is, we've seen this happen with Josh. You only need one throw.
And them having to punt versus having to,
Right.
do the
stop him 3
onside kick.
times.
That's really what
Right.
matters.
Right. But again, you're going to end up on offense, chances are, with not a lot of time left. But we've seen this in Detroit, right, with Thanksgiving Day 2 years ago. One play. That's all you need for Josh Allen, right?
And
anyway, not going to beat it up too much because it was a great game.
Well, the other thing the other major concern out of this game, because I mentioned that, the biggest thing is not that we lost. It's the way we lost. That defensive line looked pathetic, right? They got pathetic. When Von Miller gives your best performance of your defensive line, you have a freaking problem, because Von Miller is not your best player on that defensive line. He should be ancillary a couple of plays to be there to make a splash. And he was the best player on the defensive line by far. Nobody else showed up. And that is really, really a bad sign, because, again, when you look past at the Bills games in the playoffs in the past, what has the criticism been? Oh, the defensive line didn't do enough. Ed Oliver disappeared. Daquan Jones didn't do it. Again, that is a major concern for me going forward. You need to show up and prove that you're not going to do this to us in the playoffs again and be the reason we lose. And again, Stafford, all the credit in the world to the guy. He did a phenomenal freaking job playing quarterback, and Puka and Cup too, just catching everything that went their way. They had their way with the Bills defense, and it was embarrassing and bad. But again, you can recover as a defense. I have trust in the talent level there, but it's that Bills defensive line and just doing the job that needs to get done. If you're rushing the passer with 2 extra guys, you better freaking get to the quarterback. You can't spare 2 guys in the defense rushing the quarterback and nobody gets home. Nobody even gets a touch on the guy. Not a single sack in the game. So that is, embarrassing and bad and concerning from the defensive line point. The inactives were surprising to me as soon as I saw it when Phillips was inactive, not because he's the greatest player in the world anymore, but he brings a certain level of energy. He always hypes up the crowd, but he's always energy on the field, and he's a big-bodied guy who can just clog the middle, right? So I was surprised to see that he was the one who was inactive, and Carter had an abysmal game, so maybe Carter will be inactive in the next game. But just personnel-wise on the defensive line, and something has to change there. It looks like Smoot is coming back, which will help, I think. And Tuhill, we can blast that guy into the sun when it's time too. But yeah, it's just, you need more production there. You have to get something. You have to do your job, right? You put the quarterback under pressure, that's fine, but at least make him feel it. And it felt like Stafford just said, I'm going to do whatever the heck I want with you guys. And he was bullying them around.
Yeah, and he getting rid of the ball pretty quick throughout. But one thing about the Bills, though, is they get exposed in the zone. We've seen it happen a few times, right? Defense is usually pretty good.
Oh,
right?
That was the other.
But man, when they do get exposed, they do not change. They will not. They will not change their scheme. They just they try some exotic blitzes, things like that, to confuse quarterbacks. But some quarterbacks just they don't really get confused by it, right? Stafford, and going back to Phillip Rivers in the playoff game versus the Colts.
Oh yeah, he just dinked and donked.
They just dink and dunk. They know exactly where to go, right?
Yep.
So anyway, there's one of those type of games. All right, so then we are moving on from that. We'll throw a couple NFL updates in here before we get to the Lions here. So tonight, Rams, Niners, 8:15. Looks like chance of rain, chance of thunderstorms pregame. 50s. So, yeah, it looks like a rainy night in San Francisco. The NFL extends their long-standing partnership with Nike through 2038. Again, I think they went, it used to be like Reebok would get in there. Wasn't Puma in there at one point? Starter, maybe. That one. Anyway, it's been Nike for my entire adult life. It looks like it's going to be Nike
for the foreseeable future. Yeah.
Yes. That 2038, that seems like forever.
Not letting that one go, for sure.
Berlin to host another NFL game in 2025. That was finalized as well.
Right.
All right. enough of that. Bills, Lions. Here we go. Big matchup, right? NFC's best versus one of the top AFC teams. Again, hate the matchup, right? The Lions, they just have grit.
Yeah.
Out the yin yang, right? Everywhere. You can see, I mean, their running backs are gritty. It's like their quarterback's gritty at times. Their tight end, Laporta, he's a little gritty.
Yeah.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, I mean, he's got some grit.
They're biting some kneecaps, man.
Yes.
Everybody on that roster.
Yes.
You're right. They play hard-nosed, true football. And you just named stars. I mean, they're all playing at the highest level in the NFL right now. Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the top receivers in the NFL, right? Both of those running backs, individually, they would be absolutely dominant on any other team. Together, they are dominating on this team. And that is something that is very unusual. There's something to be said about having a two-headed monster where you could do one drive and one drive. But both of these guys could argue that they would be the best team in they would be the best running back in the AFC, say, right? Like, I mean, they're both that good. So having both of them on the same roster and being able to utilize that opens up the rest of the offense and, is why this team is leading in record and scoring and looking like the best team in the NFL. So those two running backs and, again, Sam Laporta, young tight end, but gritty, makes big plays. Even their extended roster of wide receivers, they go deep into the wide receiver core. You'll see one guy a game who you're like, who's that guy? He's their sixth wide receiver. He just made a catch down the field for 30 yards. So, I mean, contributors all around, especially on the offensive side. The defense is truly banged up, which is where they're vulnerable. But, man, this matchup is one that I had circled at the very beginning of the year and said, that's the toughest game of the year on the schedule because it's a bad matchup. And you need to look no further than the Bills' own coaching staff. In preseason, remember this, Eric, we talked about it a little bit on the show because I brought it up. There was, I forget the coaches were on, was it just in a preseason interview or pregame thing for the preseason? Somebody asked about, like, who's the toughest matchup in the NFL? Who's the toughest coach to go against in the NFL, both defensive and offensive? And you know who they said? The Lions. Both answers individually were the Lions, right? And the head coach, the Lions, because they have a good organization there. So what I said at that time holds true now. If your head coach, if your offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator are saying which coordinator, which coach would give you the hardest time in the entire NFL, and they both bring up the same team, that's not a good idea. That's not a good matchup for your team when both coaches are saying that. And I'm sure that they had, scouted a little bit, looking ahead into the schedule, saying, hey, this is what's in front of us, and know the guys around the league to say something like that. But utmost respect for both of them individually to say, it's the Lions. They're the toughest, coaches out there. They're the guys who are hardest to scheme for, who are hardest to prepare for. That is saying something. And now here we are. It's in front of us after a tough loss. We're going into their house, and trying to win a very tough matchup. It's going to be very hard.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, the team's really they've won 11 games in a row, right? So the whole city's bought into this team, right? 12 wins ties their franchise record, most wins in franchise history. If they beat the Bills, I mean, they'll be the best team of all time in Detroit, right? That's saying something. Jared Goff's having a phenomenal year as well. Since 2022, Josh Allen and Jared Goff are the top two passing touchdown leaders.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Goff's been good. The matchup, it's a tough one because I feel like both strong offenses, both kind of weak defenses. And we've seen the Bills defense play really well at times, right? But also, you can say the same thing for Detroit. But I think if you're just looking at this matchup, those are the two things that pop off. It's going to be another high-scoring affair. And I think it's going to be tight, right? It's going to be shot-for-shot type game, drive for drive, much like we saw last week against the Rams. So I just feel like Bills are not going to have an answer for these running backs, right? The NFL in general. Every team struggles with these two backs, and the Bills, I think, will struggle especially.
Mm-hmm.
Amon-Ra St. Brown over the middle. I mean, we might have a couple answers for that, right? Terrell Bernard, he's been good on so used to playing Tua and those throws over the middle. They might have a trick or two up their sleeve for that, right? But Jameson Williams, he's a guy who can really blow the top off.
Yeah,
he worries me.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sam Laporta just feels like a nightmare, matchup nightmare for them, right? So again, Bills will have their hands full on defense, no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the one thing that gives me hope, right, or the biggest thing that gives me hope, I'd say, Jared Goff is not Matthew Stafford, right? They've been compared throughout their careers, whatever. Jared Goff is a fully capable, good quarterback in this league. He can do a lot of things. But when it comes to the precision of dissecting the Bills' defense like Matthew Stafford did last week, Goff is not able to do that as much, right? To make those throws consistently, to be able to find thread the needle through tiny holes in the defense. Goff is not going to be that type of thrower. He just hasn't been throughout his career. But he's fully capable of, if a guy's open, he's finding him down the field. He's going to take risk, right, to get the reward. And he trusts his guys, which is why they're so successful. Again, but that defensive line, to my previous point, they have to get home against Jared Goff. You at least have to chase him down and get him under pressure because, again, he wouldn't be one of the quarterbacks that I would say, like Josh Allen is obviously the tops of rolling away from pressure and just finding a way to make a play. If you can get Jared Goff running away, you're in good position, right? So I think that they at least need to find a way to get some pressure on him in those passing downs. But you're right that the biggest threat is this run game. If Jared Goff only throws the ball 10 times in this game, we aren't going to have much of a chance to sack him, right? Because they can just pound the rock down our throats the way we've seen the Bills be vulnerable to so far this season. And again, it's not necessarily that, the Bills are just that bad against the run. Those two running backs are dominant against almost every team. And that offense, because you have to prepare for multiple things, there's going to be holes at times. Yeah. And that is what concerns me too. I think those two running backs are going to, have their fill versus this Bills defense.
Yeah, and for the Bills on offense facing their defense, I feel like, they'll have some opportunities to run the ball with James Cook. I think he could have a big day, especially running to the outside. The other thing is get Kincaid back. You get Coleman back. We'll see how much they play. I mean, I think Kincaid could have a large role in this game. Coleman, again, he's been out for a while, so that might be a little, it might take him a little bit to get back. But I do think having Kincaid back changes the game plan for the Lions, right?
Sure. They got over the middle. I mean, you're talking about a guy who can be anywhere on the field, but Kincaid in the middle along with Khalil Shakir, I mean, those guys are probably going to eat against this defense, I'd say. Especially, I mean, they have an astonishing 12 guys on the IR on defense alone.
Right.
And that is, but to their credit, they've just been able to bounce back and make plays and do what needs to be done. The last few games I've watched of theirs have been close games and they've seemed to take a big lead and then allow teams to come back against them. And I've said consistently, you can't do that versus Buffalo. They will eat you alive if you let them, so we'll come back at you and counter punch and then you'll be in trouble. But the defense for the Lions has been able to hold on to get the victory, right? Give up just enough to allow the offense to continue to do its thing and keep the lead and win games. But, this game, it wouldn't surprise me if it goes score for a while, whether that's holding one of the other to a field goal or two early on. It's still going to be, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, field goal. And I fully expect that there's going to be a lot of scoring action in this game for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And a couple injuries. Bills secondary seems to be pretty banged up this week during practice. Rasul Douglas, knee. Taylor Rapp, neck, shoulder, and DeMar Hamlin, back and ribs. I mean, everyone's a little sore this time of year. Again, we'll keep an eye on those, but I think, if they can't go, that'd be rough in the secondary. Because I don't know, Micah Hyde hasn't been here that long. You know what I mean? Cole Bishop's a rookie.
He's back, but yeah.
Yeah.
So how healthy is he? How much does he go? Yeah, I mean, that's probably who they call up, I'd imagine. But Yeah, I don't want to see Cole Bishop out there as a rookie against this team. I mean, it's just dangerous. And, I'd rather see Hyde, but is he ready to go? We'll see. And even then, it's not the Hyde of 3 years ago. This is the Hyde where, he's older and he can still make plays and be consistent, but not exactly who you want to see out there starting in an urgent game of where it's going to be a battle back and forth.
Yeah, and then Detroit has 2 defensive tackles, DJ Reader, Levi Onwuzurike.
I doubt you said that right, but I'm not even going to give it a try. So,
yeah, don't even try. I should have found another way around. But anyway, 2 defensive linemen banged up. So, I mean, they're limited practice. They're not out of practice. So, it'll be interesting. I mean, you got to think here is the Lions and Bills, the last 4 games have been decided by 3 points or less. Last 4 straight games that they've played.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable.
Bills have won them all, but they were all within 3 points or less.
That is pretty remarkable to think about, that in these matchups it tends to be that close. And you look at the line, it's Buffalo plus 2.5, maybe for a reason, because they know that these matchups tend to be close within 3 points. And if the Lions win by 3, it's victory for Vegas, I'm sure.
Right. John Robert, what's going on, John? Lewis signed.
Lewis seen
last week.
Right, but he's technically was converted to linebacker and is seeing special team snaps. Could he play at safety? That's a really good question. Would they want to do that after working to convert him to linebacker? I don't know. I guess you could use him as the third linebacker, safety, right? And try and do that. But I don't know. I don't know that they would put him in that situation, or that he's prepared. Again, that doesn't give me comfort to say, oh, well, we got this guy who was a safety who we can put out there all of a sudden and in this defense against this offense. No thanks, right? Mm-hmm. Ideally, those guys end up healthy and we get the guys who have been starting all along.
Right. John Robert also wondering who will go against Detroit if Rasul Douglas can't go.
Yeah.
Sandra's got it, though. Elam.
Yeah, I mean, everything definitely points to Elam because that's what we've seen so far from this team, right? We saw this in what week was it? Against Miami, I think it was, right? Where Elam was the guy who came in as the number 2 starter at cornerback. So I think that even though he's been inactive for the last couple weeks, this week we don't have a lot of cornerback depth. So you're going to activate him at the least if one of those guys isn't ready to go. And then you go from there and whatever has been going on behind the scenes that we don't know about hasn't been reflected in when it really matters to putting somebody on the field. It still seems to be that guy is Elam. Now we know Ingram is on this team and they like him, but different different roles there for those guys. And I still think I personally would trust Elam in the situation, even though we know his pitfalls, right? The penalties, he's been vulnerable at times, but he is also capable of making a big play. So I think he's the one I would want out there of those guys if Rasul's not ready to go.
Yeah, and this is big playoff implications, right? I mean, Philadelphia's behind Detroit 2 games, right? So they're trying to stay ahead of Philadelphia to get that first bye week, right? And then if the Bills, paying attention to the Steelers, if the Steelers win, Bills lose, Bills would go down to the 3 seed where they would get Los Angeles in the wild card over Denver, right? So it's something, not too much there. And we know the Bills' schedule lightens up towards the end, so
right.
But something to pay attention to.
Still open. Yeah. And ultimately, if the Bills lose this game, again, like I said earlier, it's not catastrophic. It's not, world ending, and they might be in the same situation that they were earlier, right? The same position ultimately come the end of the season in that 2 seed.
Yeah.
So
and if you're really concerned that the Steelers' next 3 games at Philly, at Baltimore, home against Kansas City.
Tough.
Finish the season, Cincinnati at Pittsburgh. So, I mean, the Steelers got a rough road. That's about as hard as it gets in the NFL as far as schedule, right? So, if they find a way to beat Philadelphia and the Bills lose this one, then
That's
it's
big
not the end
victory.
of the
Yeah.
world. Not big for them, but not the end of the world, right? Plenty of football left.
Yeah, and we'll get to those
into
picks later, but I am not picking Pittsburgh against Philly, so I'm not as concerned about that
right.
this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you got for this game? I know it's 2.5. Buffalo's plus 2.5.
You had to come to that, huh, Eric? You
Yes.
had to get there because I think I'm about to do something I have rarely done on this show, and
Maybe
that is
never.
no, I definitely have, but not in a long time. Because the point, I always look at it this way, right? In the preseason, I make my prediction for the Bills record. I never have said 17-0 or, undefeated, right? There's losses in there, and I predict them as such. Have I nailed every loss and victory? No, but my record for this team was 13-4. People laughed at me. People thought I was crazy. Look at this team. I was dead right about everything. And I was dead right about preaching to people about where this team was. Same was true last year. 12 wins was where I was at. 12 was where I got. Same was the year before. I think I was at 11 wins. I mean, I've been pretty good about predicting the Bills' win-loss record. And then when I'm on our show here, I tend to lean towards showing you why the Bills should win. And this is the game plan for why and how the Bills are going to win this game. And I convinced myself that's going to be what happens because the Bills are going to maximize and do their best and win that game. This game has concerned me since the beginning of the year, and I have never thought that the Bills would win this game. And, I still have hope that the Bills will. But in my prediction, I have to say, I think the Lions win a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be 38-35 Lions. So in that one, they beat the spread, right? It's Detroit minus 2.5. So what I'm betting in this game is the over, and not the money line or the spread, because I think it's just too dangerous, especially coming off what we just saw the Bills go through, and now we're facing just as lethal, if not more, against our weakness. A team that's that good too. So do I hope the Bills do everything we said earlier and make it, put Goff under pressure and force them to throw the ball and, find a way to limit the runs, not even stop, but limit them to put them in passing situations to play to your strength. I'm just not feeling confident that all of those pieces are going to fall together. Trust me, I'm going to be cheering on Sunday that it does, but 38-35 Detroit.
Okay, mark your calendars, folks. First time I think I have no memories of you picking against the Bills. So
it's been a long time, Eric, since back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was like the New England games where I'd be like, okay, we know we're going to lose this game, but yeah.
But really, this game's flip a coin, right? I mean, you can analyze it all day,
True.
but it's going to come down to, a Dan Campbell going for it on 4th and 2. Either he gets it and the Lions win, or he doesn't get it and the Bills win, right? That's kind of how it's going to go, in my opinion. That's how a lot of Detroit games go. The difference is if they do that, even if they do that early, I think a few weeks ago they went for it on their own 30 on a 4th down and got it. But if that doesn't happen, Josh Allen takes advantage of his opportunities, right? So I'm going to go 23-20 Bills. I just feel like Josh Allen's going to have a big day, and Detroit's they're going to be a little too aggressive at times, and I'm just flipping the coin and landing on the Bills, right?
Well, I'll tell you what, that is definitely historic. I have never predicted the Bills to lose, and you predicted them to win. That's definitely never happened. Never happened on our show in 8 years. So that's amazing right there. But I like your scenario a lot. And again, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me if ultimately that is what happens. We've laid it out that can be an option here, and it's going to be a hell of a game to watch. Regardless of the outcome, this is going to be a fun game to watch from these two teams.
And I think after Josh Allen's performance last week, if you're on the Bills team and you're not inspired from that performance, then and it happens all the time. There's nothing new for the team, but I feel like they're really going to believe they can win this game this week.
Setting records,
not to mention
breaking records.
McDermott getting tore up in the media over game management, and game management that. I think that he knows how to coach and get his team on the right track. We've seen it time and time again. I feel like, this is going to be a really tough game. I think the Bills will be ready.
Yeah. And anybody going is dang lucky. I saw John in the chat here said his wife is going to be there, her first Bills game. That's awesome. Shout out to her, because that's going to be a fun game to be at, like I said. And we're very respectful with Lions fans, right? We both are two franchises who have really been through it. The rest of the NFL roots for us, right? So, I mean, I really love Detroit fans, always have. I have a few buddies who are Detroit fans. One of them, I was supposed to go. We were like, okay, we got to go to this game this year. Unfortunately, my daughter's first birthday is the 18th, and we're celebrating this weekend. So I could not fly out and make this trip or drive out and make this trip to Detroit. But if somehow this ends up as the Super Bowl matchup, I will be in New Orleans to watch this game, because that would be, no matter what the outcome is. I mean, I'd obviously want the Bills to win, but I would just enjoy the entire experience.
So you're going to be retiring at 65 and not 62 now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, more like 68 or something. Take some years off of my life.
All right, going to be a fun one. I consider going to the game too. I feel like this is the last big game.
It was huge,
of the year.
Mm-hmm.
You get New England twice, the Jets until the playoffs, right? So if you did want to see the Bills in a road game, regular season, this is the last chance, it feels like.
Yeah. Another 4:25 start time to give it that national media exposure time.
Right.
That national field. Yeah.
So I had that feeling a few weeks ago and went to the San Francisco game, which turned out to be a great game to go to. I think I made the right decision, but this was definitely on the list. So those of you going to the game,
enjoy.
I think you're going to have a phenomenal time, right?
Yeah, it's indoors, so you don't have to worry about the weather. It's nice.
Right. And if you're growing up, like a good Lions team and a good Bills team. What?
I know. That's what I said to my friend, who's also, his name is Eric as well.
Good man.
And I said, hey, Eric, you got it, man. This is going to be an awesome game to go to, and we've both been through it. And even if we lose, I'll be happy for you. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fun game, to say.
Yeah, it'd be fun. I'm glad.
I don't say that about many opponents, where it's like, oh, I'm happy. Was I happy the Rams won? No, screw the Rams. I was not happy that they beat us. Would I be okay with a loss to the Lions? Yeah, because I fully respect that franchise and what they're doing, and know that, they're worthy. They are worthy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. And we all kind of want them to win. Back,
yeah.
We all do. We're rooting for them.
The NFC team that we all root for.
And they beat Kansas City, was it last year, the first game of the year? I mean, they got me as a fan that day. All right, Thursday night football, Rams at the 49ers. Big divisional implications here, right? Rams plus 2.5. That's supposed to say SF.
Oops. Yep. So there's one mistake already. But anyway, this game, Thursday night football, I was talking to a buddy of mine who's still in an eliminator league, and he's got only a few choices left. And he said, well, would you pick one of these teams or pick Green Bay against Seattle? And I said, this game is too much of a coin flip for me. I would take, Green Bay, just because you go with the best team. And these two teams have been playing very inconsistent, right? It wouldn't surprise me if one of them wins 30-6, but it wouldn't surprise me if, it goes back and forth and the score ends up 24-23 or something. So I don't trust either of these teams in this game. In the location, it's in San Francisco. I think that gives them the edge. So I would take San Francisco to win, but with the point margin only 2.5, man, I think San Francisco wins by a field goal. So I'll take them. But the Rams obviously played a dominant game versus Buffalo, could come out looking that good again on offense. But their problem is their defense is very, very vulnerable. The Bills didn't run the ball effectively against them, but San Francisco is built to run the ball effectively against anybody. And I think even with their third string running back, they've looked successful. He is active for this game. So, get him back in your fantasy lineups if you benched him. But yeah, I think San Francisco ultimately gets the win on Thursday.
Yeah, and I think Rams, exciting game Sunday, right? They pretty much gave it everything they had, it seemed like, to win that game. Now it's a short turnaround into another huge game in the division. I just think in the rain in San Francisco, it's a lot to overcome. I feel like San Francisco played well last week. And, they're the experienced team, when it comes to that. I know the Rams have been there, but they're young. They seem young on defense, whereas this 49ers team had a lot of people return from last year. So I like the 49ers, late in the season, kind of making a run, right? I like
even with the injuries, huh?
Yeah,
overcoming the injuries. I like.
Well, and also have George Kittle in fantasy in the playoffs. So
I do. I'm hopeful. A couple leagues as well.
Yeah, so
that was you brought up fantasy, so I have to say the worst part of that loss to the Rams one of my leagues had started the playoffs a week earlier than most do, and I was playing against Joshua Patrick Allen, and I mentioned that last week. And sure enough, doesn't he set the record for points in a playoff game? And in a league where I had 250 more points scored than the next team, I ended up losing in the first round of the playoffs because of Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And we still lost the game. It'd be one thing if we at least won. I'd be like, yeah, okay, I'll accept
and
that.
that's why I went from like
lose.
5 fantasy leagues down to 2, because that just takes the fun out of it, you know?
Yeah, I have 8. So
definitely a fun one. Can he repeat? We'll see. All right, Bengals at Titans. Cincinnati -5 going to Tennessee. -5 feels like not enough. Not enough.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't trust either of these teams either. When you think about the defense of Cincinnati just being absolutely disgusting, but the offense of Tennessee is sort of inept, and therefore I would give the edge to the Cincy offense, which has been very effective. So yeah, I agree that I think Cincy wins by a touchdown, and so give me Baltimore or give me Cincy -5 all day against Tennessee. Tennessee's going to be able to score though, right? You can run the ball, you can pass the ball, you can pretty much have your way with that Cincinnati defense, but ultimately their offense will overcome it.
Right. Yeah, big day for Tony Pollard, I think, but still, the Bengals are just on fire. Tennessee will have no answers for them. So I like Cincinnati in multiple scores. I feel like that line is way too tight. All right, Kansas City Chiefs at the Cleveland Browns. Kansas City -4 at Cleveland.
Just shaking my head, right? Like, I mean, I'm so sick of Kansas City. I'm taking Cleveland with the points since Kansas City hasn't won by a touchdown all year. So I'm taking Cleveland +4. Kansas City wins by 3. That's how this game's going to go.
Snow. We're getting snow for this game.
Who cares?
But still, I trust Pat Mahomes in the snow over Jameis Winston, unfortunately. Kansas City will get turnovers.
Yeah.
From Jameis Winston, and that's enough.
Right. Jerry Jeudy gets 200 yards, but it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Right. So, this is easy win for Cleveland or Kansas City, in my opinion. All right, Washington at the New Orleans Saints. Washington -7.5 going to New Orleans.
Yeah, Washington's the Saints without Carr, Washington here has a big advantage to make a statement, and I think they do. They're the better team. I think they win by 2 scores against this team without their main quarterback. So yeah, give me Washington on the road to win by 10. So I'll take them -7.5.
And I think Washington's currently the 7 seed. I think they're 1 game behind the Rams, or 1 game ahead of the Rams, right?
Ahead of the Rams aren't in the playoffs yet.
Right, but they're 1 game out. So yeah, I like this is tough. I think it's a tight game. So I'm going to take Washington to win, but the Saints cover. So what's that? 24-20.
Okay.
All right. Ravens at the Giants. Baltimore -16 at the Giants. Now that's a line. There we go.
Biggest line of the year, I think, so far.
Ravens coming off the bye week.
Coming off the bye against probably the worst team in football right now in the Giants. What's his name? DeVito is starting at quarterback for the Giants. This is, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm taking Baltimore -16. I mean, there's nothing to show me that they're not just going to come out and absolutely steamroll the Giants. Giants are at home. They play miserable at home all the time. They always play worse at home. So, yeah, it's
a dumpster fire in the Giants. Clearly trying to tank at this point is what it seems like. So, yeah, Giants will have no answers. Yeah, I think it's more than 16. So I'll go Ravens. All right, Cowboys at the Panthers. Dallas +3 at Carolina.
Yeah, is this the first time Carolina's been favored this year? It might be. But actually, the Panthers have been playing pretty well, right? They've been scoring points, and Bryce Young has looked pretty good, and they found a rhythm, which is good to see out of a young team, right? You don't expect them to win. They've been doing exactly what they should do. Stay in games and still lose. Be impressive, but still lose, right? So that they still are in good draft position. And that's where this team should be at right now. But I actually think they come away with the win here against Dallas. Dallas has showed a lack of just heart and ability to be in games lately. And again, Carolina's been the hotter team. They've come out to a hot start. They can, excuse me, they can run the ball well. They played surprisingly good on defense. Dallas is very vulnerable on defense against the run specifically, but also in the pass at times. And yeah, I think Carolina capitalizes on that. So give me Carolina by a touchdown.
This will be a tough one, right? I feel like the Cowboys after that game last week could go one of two ways, right? They're going to bounce back, be inspired, have a good game on the road where they're 4-2. I think they've only won one game at home this year, right? So they're better on the road than at home. Or they're just going to be a defeated team, and who cares, right? Because when punts get blocked, they get recovered by the punt team. So
biggest bonehead mistake.
I feel like that could just kill morale. So I think it's a close game. I am going to go Carolina at home. I'll say they win by more than 3. All right, Jets at the Jaguars. New York Jets -3.5 at Jacksonville.
Well, the disappointing news here is somebody has to win. And the funny part here is that it's Mac Jones versus the Jets again. So I have no idea where to go with this one. Really, honestly, I have no idea where to go. But my gut just says you can't pick the Jets. You can't trust the Jets. So I'm taking Jacksonville to win this game, to find a way to win, even though they're down on their luck as well. Neither team is going to be impressive, I don't think. So give me the Jaguars to make an upset win here.
Yeah, I mean, I want to pick the Jets here, but man, they're going to find a way to blow this. I know it. But yeah, I think I'll go Jets. I just feel like Jacksonville just has nothing going right for them this year. The Jets at times look good, but then blow it somehow. I think it's a close game, but I think the Jets will win and cover. All right, Dolphins at Texans, Miami +3 at Houston.
This is a good game, actually, a sneaky good game on the schedule this week because the Dolphins need the win to at least try and stay in the playoff race. Houston has kind of fallen off lately, but they're coming off their bye, and I think that gives them a little bit of an edge here. Their passing game is good. Their protection has been bad. Their offense has not looked as effective in the last few weeks. But I think having the bye is going to be helpful. I've been going back and forth because the strength of Miami is also the weakness of the Texans over the middle, kind of that quick pass game that Tua likes to do. I'm going to take Houston as the favorite at home to win by 4. So like a 20-24 game.
Yeah, I like Houston. Miami, they're soft. They haven't beat a good team, and I think the Texans are a good team, right? They've been kind of quiet lately, but they're going to win the division. And Miami's shown me nothing to think they can be a decent team. So I like the Texans. Multiple scores. All right, so Colts at Broncos, Indy +4 at Denver.
Yeah, this is one where I'm all in on Denver. I think that they have the momentum right now. They are, seem to be clicking well on offense, playing better than their defense looks. And Indy, although they have playmakers and can be exciting to watch, I don't know that they can do that consistently. So I'm taking Denver -4. I think they're at home, which is always a big advantage being, in the Mile High City, the altitude and all of that. So yeah, give me Denver by at least a touchdown.
Yeah, was Indianapolis still in the hunt, 6-7, and Denver 8-5. So they got quite a lead there at the 7 seed. If the Colts want to crawl their way into they have to win this one. But again, I think Denver's playing good, right? They're an inspired group, so I think they continue their momentum at home. I think they win by a touchdown. All right, big game. Steelers at the Philadelphia Eagles. Pittsburgh +5 going to Philly.
Yeah, this is the matchup, we were talking about earlier where I think the Steelers have a couple of injuries on their offense especially, but the Eagles, to me, have been one of the best teams in football all year, right? The talent, yes, they've got all the drama, right? We know that from the end of the season last year, right? That the way it ended, the way things, and now there's drama being stirred up with their diva wide receiver and everything. But ultimately, the Eagles are the better roster. and the Eagles are the better team. I think the Steelers' defense keeps them somewhat in check, so a lower scoring game than usual for the Eagles. But, 23-16 is probably my final score for the Eagles.
The Eagles drive me crazy because they're definitely the best team in the NFL.
Yeah, I know.
As far as talent, right?
They win all in. Yeah.
They get, I don't know what it is. They get bored. They fight with each other. You always hear about these locker room. Oh, they're mad at each other, right? All that stuff goes on in Philly, and man, but if they can put it all together, they're one of the best teams in the league. So it's hard to tell what type of Philly team you're going to get this week, right? I feel like the Steelers are used to playing the Baltimores and the Cincinnatis, right? They're not afraid of a talented football team, right? So again, this one could be close, but again, I just think Philadelphia has too much going for them. They can beat you in multiple different ways on offense. So I just think that's going to be too much for the Steelers to overcome. So again, I like Philadelphia. Agree with you. Kind of a 24-17 type game, but especially in Philly. All right. And not to mention Saquon Barkley breaking the rushing record. I mean, that's definitely on the table. Anyway, Patriots at Cardinals, New England +6 at Arizona. How are we feeling here?
Well, I mean, Arizona has been disappointing the last few weeks a little bit, but I think that ultimately this New England matchup is favorable for them. Arizona's at home. I think they do win by a touchdown, so it's close. New England has been playing well with Drake May, but ultimately I think that the Cardinals roster does what it's capable of, and against a team that is beatable, more beatable than their last two opponents. So, give me the Cardinals to win by a touchdown.
Yeah, and both teams have now lost 3 games in a row.
Ooh, 3 in a row. Wow.
But I feel like, the Cardinals are just the better team. I don't get why they don't get Marvin Harrison involved. I just don't get it. Maybe it's the quarterback can't get him the ball. I just don't know what it is. But Arizona should be better. They've shown that they're a good football team, but just haven't put it together in a couple weeks now. So I think that turns around here. I like Arizona at home by a touchdown. All right, Buccaneers at Chargers, Tampa Bay +3 at the Chargers.
So this game should be a good scoring game, right? That's what I think of here. Chargers have been playing better defense, but again, against Kansas City, they couldn't get the job done when it counted most. So here, Tampa's been a hot team, and they've been able to score, and they've stayed in it. And this feels like an upset to me. So I'm going to take Tampa Bay with the points. I think they win it in a very close game, maybe 28-27. So give me the Bucs.
Yeah. Yeah, the Bucs have won 3 in a row. They're good on the road. They're 4-2 on the road.
They're on the brink of the division now, even though it looked bleak for them with the fall from grace of Atlanta.
And, I like Justin Herbert. I like what Harbaugh's doing there, but it's a little conservative in today's NFL is what it seems like. Bucs don't have that problem, right? The big thing last year is they could not run the football. 32nd in the league in rushing last year. That's different now. And I'm not sure if Bucky Irvin will be healthy for this one, but that's a big factor, right? They found a way to run the ball. And I think with their receivers, the way their defense is coached, Tampa Bay is a good team. So I like Tampa Bay in this one. Again, chasing the division. They have a real shot at it. All right, Packers at the Seahawks. Green Bay -2.5 at Seattle.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier, but, to me, Green Bay is the better team. They should win this game. Seattle's capable of coming back and winning, though. I mean, I'm certainly not counting them out. But give me Green Bay to win by 3 points because of the strength of their defense and their offense being, getting the edge on Seattle.
Yeah, this is a tough matchup. It's another one of those games, literally flip a coin, right? I mean, Seattle's won 4 in a row now. They know that there's 2 really hot teams on their tail. I mean, San Francisco not hot yet, but feel like they're going to bounce back at some point. Rams playing good right now. But Seattle hasn't been good at home necessarily. They've lost some big games at home. That feels different for me. But yeah, I'm going to take Seattle by 3 in this game. I just, I like Green Bay, but I just feel like Seattle's going to feel the pressure.
And come through.
Come through. Yep. All right, let's go. Bears at the Minnesota Vikings. Chicago +7 at Minnesota.
Well, this one's a little easier for me. I'm taking Minnesota -7. I think they win
Yeah.
probably by 2 scores, make it a 10-point game
Yeah.
or something, even though it's a division rival. Minnesota's at home. They've been playing pretty consistent. So, yeah, I like Minnesota there.
Yeah. And if the Bears do pull this off, it'd be a huge swing, right? Minnesota won 6 in a row. Bears have lost 7. Um, I think Sam Darnold, man, if they don't sign him long term, I feel like they're going to regret that.
I don't know.
There's no guarantees the rookie's going to be good. You know what I mean? Sam Darnold's finally figuring out football, and I think it's a good place for him to be. I think you have to
Mm.
roll with that. But anyway, he's been fun to watch. So yeah, I like Minnesota by multiple scores. All right, last one: Atlanta at the Raiders. Atlanta -4 at Las Vegas.
I pick them, it feels like every week, but I'm taking Atlanta -4 here. They desperately need a win. Kirk Cousins has looked a little tired the last couple of weeks, but this is a game where they have the ability to bounce back just because the Raiders are pretty weak, both offensively and defensively. I think this could be the game you see Bijan Robinson get going again. So yeah, give me Atlanta -4. I think they win by 2 scores.
I'm gonna go Desmond Ridder comeback game. Getting back at Atlanta. He's starting this week for the Raiders, but
Is he? Oh yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't think it's quite official, but all
Yeah,
reports are
probably.
he is preparing to be the starter. But again, Atlanta's too much for the Raiders to overcome. I hate watching the Raiders, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I don't even know. Okay,
frustrating.
just throw it to Brock Bowers every time because there's no one else
That's
to
the only
rely
guy.
on. So after that Kansas City game too, they're dead to me. So I'm going Atlanta all day on this one. All right. Anything
That's it.
to add? I think we're all good.
Man, some competitive football like we opened with. This is playoff preparation time, right? These guys are ready to go, and these matchups are, important. So we'll see where the ball lands. And even on the loser side of it, there's a competitive, what is it, like 10 teams that could still be the number 1 overall pick or something. So on that side of it is pretty interesting as well.
Right. It's a lot. It's
And
head to head.
there's a competition at the bottom as well.
So who are you
So
competing for?
yeah.
Who's the number 1 pick? Was it
I
Shador
don't know.
Sanders?
Yeah, I mean,
Travis Hunter?
maybe Travis Hunter is probably the guy that I would want most on my team. I feel like he's the one you can't miss with because he
Right.
plays both sides of the ball. Whatever you want to make him, you need a cornerback, let him play cornerback. Throw him in
Right.
at receiver. Be the first gadget guy in the NFL that way. Not the first, but maybe the first in a long time, the most effective. Maybe that translates to the NFL. I don't know. But if you're a team that's like, we desperately need a cornerback, that's your guy. You desperately need a wide receiver, that could be your guy.
Yeah.
So I like his dynamic ability. To me, he's the player I've watched. Now, I haven't scouted other quarterbacks or anything, but we know from what we've heard, there's not much of a quarterback class this year that is interesting beyond, that probably what makes, I feel like Shador Sanders would be one of those later round picks or like 5th in the normal run of QBs. Maybe still a first rounder, but a first rounder toward the middle of the class, not top of the first round. And because of this class, he is a top of the first round guy. So we'll see where he ends up. And the rumors about, well, he wants to go somewhere where he fits and not just anybody, that kind of diva mentality already. I don't really like that attitude, but
I think the Raiders are a good fit for him, but I think also the Giants, they're 1-2 right now.
Yeah, they need it.
I think both are good fits, right?
And I fully expect he'll be up there.
Right. Other teams in the mix, right? Patriots probably won't go quarterback. Carolina's interesting about quarterback. I'm not sure what direction they'll go.
Yeah.
Jacksonville, Tennessee, the Jets, that's your top 7. Yeah, but I think this Las Vegas thing for Shador Sanders could be fun.
Yeah.
So
we'll see how it all shakes out, but there's going to be some teams, vying for that. Or trade scenarios, right? Because if you can trade one of those top picks, you always get a haul for that. So
right. But those top 2 teams can't afford that.
Oh no, they can't. They're picking.
They got to take quarterback, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and the Giants could end up overdrafting a quarterback, like they did with Daniel Jones. And
I mean, if the Giants end up at the 2 pick and the Raiders take Shador.
You think about like last year, like, okay, Bo Nix is available, JJ McCarthy's available, and you waited like they did. They could have had Josh Allen, Sam Darnold. They waited. And
It's
now
not a good position to be in now.
they might have to rebuild again.
Hindsight's
if they don't get this right.
2020, but yeah,
Yeah,
I mean
yeah.
that's easy.
It could
That's
be bad.
tough to swallow.
Anyway, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next Thursday, and go Bills. It's going to be
Go
a fun
Bills,
one.
baby. Go Bills. Thanks for kicking it with us.